So a few years ago, I went on a site visit to one of our key members, the Royal Bank of Scotland, and I was discussing the future of fraud prevention with the fraud manager there. And he said he had a mantra about voices, faces, and devices. And this is maybe going back 4 years now. And that was because that bank, the Royal Bank of Scotland, was looking to how it's going to the future and how it was going to authenticate customers. And therefore, the fraud prevention challenge was, how do we respond, moving away from an address-based identity check-in to one based on voices, faces, and devices. And that's why I think the theme of today resonates so well, both, I believe, in South Africa, but in the UK and globally. Regarding devices, well, I think we missed the boat. Technology has enabled devices to be identified and the device reputation to be known. But as a fraud prevention community, we lost the opportunity to be able to aggregate data across providers of device reputations. And that wasn't due to the lack of common data factors, but to the lack of a vision around creating a common standard. Each of the main providers of device identity, the likes of iovation and ThreatMetrix, for example, use their own code and range of factors that are not comparable across vendors. So thinking that there are solutions around devices, but there's not a place perhaps for a data aggregation organization such as SAFPS. So therefore we turn to concentrate on voices and faces. Now, voices can be captured and they can be compared, and technology exists that enables the identifying and sharing of bad actor voices. And SAFPS is also running a proof of concept on sharing bad actor voices. And I see that's on the agenda today, and I'm really looking forward to learning lessons at that session. So where we've concentrated and where we have made progress is on the collection and aggregation of faces associated with frauds. In particular, this is a tool to detect identity fraud. And as you've just been hearing from Darlene, that's a significant problem both in South Africa and the UK, and I would say globally. And we've also seen about the ubiquity of the use of smartphones, the uses of selfies to identify ourselves to financial institutions, to online retailers, and more broadly. So faces have become more and more important as a means of identifying ourselves through the onboarding process to access goods, services, products, and facilities. So we launched facial matching software across our documents in May 2019, and we immediately found it to be a powerful tool to identify frauds and fraud rings that were not previously identified by any of the other data matching we do across our data sets. So in our system, once a case of fraudulent conduct has been submitted by a member to the National Fraud Database, the system will link cases submitted by other members and their own cases using a set of data matching rules, such as, is it the same individual, is it the same contact details, the same financial details? And now a data matching rule kicks in to say, is it the same face on one of the documents that have been uploaded? And this then helps them identify fraud networks impacting their organizations. Facial matching that we've introduced uses the facial recognition software that's or a service that's in the Microsoft Azure cloud services. It's a real-time service. So as soon as a facial image is uploaded, a search is conducted immediately across all other uploaded documents and images to see if that face matches another loaded to the National Fraud Database. So how does this work? So when an applicant for an account or a service or a product, any one of our members, and if that is found to be fraudulent, then the member in the normal case of events would file a case to the National Fraud Database. At that stage, the member can upload any associated documents with the fraud, including documents with images or an image on itself, for example, a still from a CCTV or a photograph or a selfie, as well as any identity documents presented as part of the fraudulent application, including driving licenses, identity documents, passports. So the image is recognized by the software and is automatically identified as a face, and then it's stored in a repository of faces. So as I mentioned, on supply of an image of a face, the software recognizes the face, puts it in the repository, but at the same time fires the matching rule, which searches that the face that has been uploaded, does it match any of the other faces that are in that repository. A second member then comes along and maybe has an application for a new account, and will upload the image that it has, whether from a selfie or from an identity document. So this second member doesn't initially suspect fraud, they're just doing the normal onboarding checks. Once they upload those face, the data matching rule kicks in, the repository is searched, the facial image is compared and see if there's a match. And then the presenting member, the searching member, will then be presented back with a comparison of both their image and the face that's found to be matched. And therefore, and then it's for the member to determine, do these two individual faces look like they're the same person? So SAFPS members can enact a search of a face during the onboarding of clients. They can also do it during an investigation. So if they come across an image and they're investigating a particular suspected fraud, they can upload the image and search that database. It can also be used retrospectively. So you can look at previous cases or previous accounts that have been opened and do a match across that. And so it's an investigative tool, but it's also an onboarding tool, and it also can be done against existing customers to see whether you have got a face which matches to any fraudulent document that's been uploaded. So how do our members use this new facility since May 2019? Well, or how do we allow it to be used? So we do not allow for automated decisions to be made on the back of a facial match. So there has to be this return of the faces for the organization to do that final human sense check that is it the same individual that has matched. We have initially set a score in the algorithm such that the false positive rate is very low. And I think this is around building confidence that a facial matching software such as we have put into our database can have public confidence that it's only returning those who are the person that or the same face as we have on file related to a previous fraudulent conduct. And we also have a feedback score in place so the investigator who's comparing those two faces can give a score between 1 and 5 of how accurate that facial match has been. And that feedback score then allows us to hone that data matching algorithm. And so over time, it becomes more and more targeted. The false positive rate and the false negative rate will drop. So we keep this constantly under review so that we also do not exclude many of the false negatives, clearly where a facial match comes back and because of the perhaps how the photograph has been taken or the image has been uploaded may not be a complete match. So far, there's been a very high level of matching with very, very few cases returned through this data matching and this facial recognition software where there has been an incorrect match. So what's the impact of this been? Well, there's been a number of impacts. Clearly, I'll go on to how this has identified fraud and fraud syndicates, but also it's had a significant impact in the amount of data and documents and faces that have been uploaded to the National Fraud Database. So SAFPS created a facility for a member to upload documents associated with fraud back in July 2016. And you can see through this graph how the how the number of documents has increased over time. So the variety of documents that can be uploaded through this facility range from bank statements and utility bills, for example, to verify proof of address and income, pay slips, etc., but also documents to satisfy proof of identity. So passports, driving license, and ID cards of any nationality. Between 2016 and 2019, you can see the number of documents being uploaded showed a sustained increase. But you'll see that in May 2019 onwards, when facial matching was launched to members, there's been a significant increase in members recognizing the utility of uploading documents, particularly with faces. So before May 2019, around 20% of the documents uploaded contained a face. Since that period, it's gone up to around 45% of all documents that are uploaded now contain a face. I'd like to give you an example of what this looks like. So this slide shows how we identified that the same face had been used over 4 different applications over a period of 4 years. What this document came up, these documents have come back to a false document factory. There are criminals who make their living from creating false documents to be used in fraud, but in other crimes. And this has been successfully used with 4 different identities, with 4 different UK driving licenses being issued over the years or created by the false document factory. And the only unique identifier linking these frauds was the face. So these are 4 different members, 4 different applications, and 4 different driving licenses. I'd like to just also take you through an example of how a syndicate, a organized crime ring, was identified by the use of the facial recognition, the facial matching software. This slide shows the network of fraudulent conduct reported to the National Fraud Database by just our banking organisations in the past 18 months. The cluster on the left at the top, highlighted with the red circle, shows that these cases here, so each of those nodes where you see the little person is a different case, these were only linked by the same document reference number. The individual clusters across the rest of the image represent unique identities filed by SAFPS members, and all frauds within this network are tied together by a single individual using different names, but again the same face to perpetrate fraudulent conduct. When we delve into the individual documents which are attached to those specific cases, we see the following. The first 4 documents you can see relate to passports from Belgium, the Czech Republic, and Slovakia, I believe, 2 from Slovakia, or Czech Republic, Slovakia, Belgium, 2 from, and 1 from Slovenia. And the image on the bottom left was also uploaded as the SAFPS member also captured a selfie at the time documentation was supplied. So in many cases now on the onboarding process, you might provide a document and then a selfie which can then be compared, and that selfie was captured by the member. This individual went on to create 22 separate unique identities, committing over 25 separate acts of fraudulent conduct across 4 banks in the past 18 months. So being able to get very different identities with different passports, but with the same face so that he can prove who himself is, particularly through that selfie and online identification, or even in branch. Overall, during his shortened criminal career now, he used 6 nationalities: Czech, Slovakian, Italian, French, Belgian, and Hungarian. And we believe that as more and more of our organizations adopt the use of document upload and the facial matching software, that this network will continue to increase as new links are created And these are built solely on the one common data factor being the same face, the same individual's face. This hadn't been detected, would not have been detected by any other mechanism apart from the facial matching data match rule. So we're now offering this functionality for our membership via an API. So therefore this can be scaled up. So for all onboarding of customers, when they provide a face, it will be able to be searched automatically against our repository of bad actor faces. And I think this gives great opportunity for preventing fraud through this mechanism. Some more of the faces there. I said there was 22 in all. I won't show them all, but you can definitely see same individual, sometimes changes hair a little bit, but clearly the same individual. So what's been the impact of this? As of this month, over 20,000 cases have been uploaded to the National Fraud Database, which contain a document showing a face. Of those, 1,441 unique face cases have been generated and matched to another document, and 1,389 cases matched to a unique face, resulting in 10,500 linked cases. 10,500 separate frauds previously now linked in through this unique identifier of a similar face. Our members have also uncovered previously undetected fraud in their customer databases using the facial matching technology. For example, HSBC Bank found 13 existing accounts in their customer accounts that have been successfully opened in different identities but using the same face. So it's finding fraud both within an organization, but also where fraudsters are using different documents but with the same face across multiple of our members. So we're now looking to see how we can scale facial matching to compare to identity documents at the onboarding of more and more members. So at new account opening, I foresee that this will be one of the checks through an API to be able to, across all of our members who use facial matching or use faces and selfies to identify people. So in summary, the UK experience of using facial matching has been that it's been really an unqualified success. I put that down to a number of things. It hasn't attracted any adverse publicity or controversy from our information commissioner or from privacy groups or individually from consumers. I think the way that we've implemented the algorithm makes it such a close match that is returned that it's, the case stands up very strongly. It's been successful in stopping attempts at fraud that would not otherwise have been stopped. No other data matching rule or check would have stopped some of the frauds apart from the facial matching technology. It's linked cases that we would not otherwise have linked, as that example showed, where the same face was the only unique indicator of linked cases. And it's detecting fraudulently open accounts that would never have been detected until too late. So that example of the 13 HSBC accounts, which are there in obviously being controlled by the same syndicate. So I would say in summary, it's been a very interesting journey to go on. It's really encouraged more documents to be uploaded. It's identifying frauds we would not have identified before. It clearly is one of the biometrics that is popular since we've all got smartphones to be able to upload selfies, identify yourself through a face. As Darlene says, no one can steal your face, but they can steal the image of your face and use it to perpetrate fraud. So that's the view from the UK. Interested to take any of your questions and also your experience, or any of you using facial recognition technology, what's your experiences, and how, and any more information you'd like to hear about our experience, of course. Thank you very much. Back to you, Wendy.
Thank you very much, Mark. That was fascinating and like most presentations today, not a little bit scary. Those faces landing up on all those different ID documents. It reminded me of a quote that I read from Frank Abagnale. I'm quite fascinated with him, the man who was the subject in the movie Catch Me If You Can, now working, the con artist, now FBI agent. And he says, he talks about this, people using people's faces for nefarious means. And he's advised people never to post on Facebook or any other social media platform their profile picture full on, to always have it playing sport or, use something abstract, but don't use your face full on. Is that advice that you would endorse given the work that you do?
I also love that film, Wendy. I think the sophistication of fraudsters has increased, and that, but also the technology has that whatever some of this facial matching technology that we've been using, it will still detect if you've got a side-on face, if you're the photograph's been taken in the dark. I would say that now you could use those, even if you did that on Facebook, that face can still be lifted and it could still be utilized in an application. Now, clearly, when you apply for something like a passport or driving license, they want a full-on front face. So stealing someone's photograph, for example, or would not work in those circumstances. But what I think we need to do is, like identity details as a whole, we need to make them worthless to the criminal. And I think that's what Secure Citizen's trying to do. And I think you're ahead of the world in South Africa with Secure Citizen. We're running behind trying to catch up on that. But that's all around making sure that if we know there's going to be data breaches, we know criminals will go and find our identity details. They will socially engineer us to get our details.
Yeah. And
I think we can't put our thumb back in that dam. Our data's out there. It's being engineered. It's been stolen. It's being lost. What our job, I think, is to make it useless at that point of application, so that you don't have to worry so much about whether you've inadvertently put your face full on in a photograph of Facebook, or your password has been compromised and someone's stolen your identity, or someone's lost your data. We need to make sure that we know that's happening when the criminals put it together and they want to open an account in your name or take over your account. Then we need to make it useless. And I think this type of technology will mean, and some of the other biometric technologies we talk about, whether it's your voice or your face, we need to be able to make that theft of the identity useless at that point of application. And I think that's the real battle, because you know what, from whatever we say about the consumers and citizens, be careful on social media, make sure you don't act this way in Facebook, don't make it easy for criminals. People forget, they don't think about fraud at that moment. And I think that's the issue, is that thank God, most people aren't thinking about fraud all the time. And when you're out with your family on a picnic and you're taking pictures on Facebook to post them, to be thinking, I better not post that. That's the world. And we need to go with how the world is. And I think that's...
Those of us who work in these fields and deal with the frauds all the time, I think that we're a little bit paranoid about all of that. But for the rest, and understandably so, you say it's not fraud. The possibility of being a victim of fraud is not uppermost in their minds, living their daily lives. So let's hope that that battle is won with technology sooner rather than later. Thank you so much.
Yeah, we have to battle for the innocent, don't we? We have to protect the innocent. We do get up every day and think, how are we going to stop the fraudsters?
Yeah.
And we're doing that on behalf of the innocent public.
Yes, I get very cross with people who say, oh, how could they be so stupid when I present a case? Because, there but for the grace, there'll be another circumstance when you, Mr. Criticizing, is going to have your guard down, and that chink will be exploited. So yeah, it's about being the eyes and ears and the armor for the ordinary citizen who can't be expected to be 100% vigilant all the time. All power to the technology. Thank you so much, Mark.
No problem.